see them, not like I used to see them all the time, but not like that. But I still do see them every now and then. But I get direct messages from them as well, mostly, well, not just with the board, but direct downloads of information. And we can definitely explore some of that on this show. So I've been involved with this tool, like I said, for a very long time. When I first came out in the public, that was 2012, and that was when my first book came out. And it really, just me being in public with it, people really wanted to hear more of my story and why I wasn't afraid of this tool. And we'll definitely get into that tonight. But so that led me to write a few of my other books because people wanted to hear my story and my odyssey using this tool. So I share that. And so that's my message really. And the overall goal of this that I try to share is that there really is nothing to fear when it comes to this tool. It's just a piece of wood or cardboard or masonite, and that really, it's really yourself that's able to do this incredible stuff, which is being able to reach into the other realms and dimensions. So my goal is always to push the boundaries of consciousness and explore and discover what else lies out there in the infinite, expansive universe. So that's what I do.
That is awesome. That is awesome. That's really interesting, and there's a lot of that out there that we don't realize on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of things that people do that we're really unaware of, so to speak. And I think, and we've talked a little bit about this before, Karen. You said you consider the Ouija board as more of a tool than anything else, and really that's what it is. I've had discussions before also about the spirit box. To me, the spirit box seems kind of like a digital version of the Ouija board as well. Now me and Justin, we've messed with the Ouija board. We tried it. What we tried once or twice, Justin? Once. Just once, yeah. Yeah, we tried it once. I wouldn't say I don't know. I guess I don't know if we didn't open the board properly, because I know sometimes it takes a while to open the board.
I think it was the setting.
Yeah, I think it was more the setting than anything else. What got you started using the Ouija board?
Well, I love that question because, as I mentioned, I was already able to see a lot of things that other people couldn't see, and that also includes auras. But what I like about that question is, I stumbled into it. It wasn't like I went out there to find the board. The board found me. And what I mean by that is, I had these abilities, but I kind of kept it quiet. I didn't want to share too much with my friends or even my family anymore, because everybody said I was making things up or it wasn't real when I would see these beings or communicate with them. But I had two girlfriends who lived down the street, and they invited me to their house to play with some games one day. And I was 8, and my one of the girls was my best friend. She was 8, and she had a sister who was 10, just a couple of years older. So I would play with them often. So I went to their house, and I thought we're going to pull out, maybe Candyland or Tiddlywinks or Operation, What are the basic board games, right? No. What they pulled out was a Ouija board. And I went, what is this? I'm like, what is this thing? I didn't really believe it worked. I was like, they're like, you could talk to the dead. And I was like, that's just seems so silly. There's just no way you don't use the board to talk to the dead. I was just thinking this, I just thought, well, I'm not going to poo-poo it all, because they were real serious about it. And they got on there and they showed me how it worked. And they were asking just silly, stupid questions. And finally they said, we're going to show you something. We actually do communicate with somebody who's dead, who's one of our family members. I'm like, what? And then that's when I learned the older sister had a twin at birth that died shortly after birth. And they were using the board to communicate with her. I went, what? So I got on the board with them on the planchette, and sure enough, it started working right away for me. There was a lot of times it takes people a lot of times. For me, it just worked right away with those girls. And I was just amazed. And what I was most amazed about was, number one, I didn't know they had a dead sister. But number two, this dead little girl who died before even the age of 1 was the age of 10. She was growing up on the other side. Wow. And this Yeah. And so that to me was blowing my mind. I said, what? There's actually an afterlife that you really can continue to grow and live and learn. I was a Catholic going to church, doing all this stuff that Catholics do. And, they did talk about an afterlife. And so I quickly ran home and said to my parents, it's true. The afterlife does exist, and you could communicate with them, and you could do it through a Ouija board. And they were like, sure, wink, wink. This you can. What is the deal? What story is she making up now? And I said, you don't have to believe me, but it's real. And if you don't believe me, I know Santa Claus will, and I'm going to ask Santa Claus to give me one for Christmas. And you guys, the rest is history. That Christmas, December 25th, 1973, I received my first Ouija board from Santa Claus, and the rest is history.
Wow, yeah, that's very interesting. Now, there's a lot, as we're aware, there's a lot of darker entities that seem to come through the Ouija board as well. Have you ever encountered something that you felt was a darker presence that tried or attempted to come through the Ouija board to communicate?
Well, what has happened for me over the years is when anything negative came through that I felt was negative, it could be they were cussing. Yeah. So there was like a negative sense about it, a feeling about it, or the way they were talking to me. I would tell them to leave and I wouldn't talk to them, and I would hang up. Basically with the board, what I tell people if they're using this tool, don't engage with something you don't want to engage with. Don't engage with somebody who's being negative. And so, and that's like in life. If somebody's going to, just be a bully and a asshole, if I can use that word, why? Okay, good. So why engage? And so that's what I just knew that intuitively. And I just did it when that would come through. And I talk about that in my book as well, a couple of times when I just shut it down and said, I will not talk to you. And then I either put the board away for some time or I just wipe it off and start over. But if something comes through that I don't like, I won't communicate. And I've done that several times. Now, to where I am now with the board and using this tool, you really do grow when you use this tool in terms of your abilities to dial up different frequencies, and you get really good at doing it. So I don't have that problem at all anymore. There's nothing negative that ever comes through. It hasn't come through in many, many, many years. I think it's because of where I am with my own energy and how I've honed myself using this tool, but myself as well. But yeah, you don't have to engage with something negative comes through. And I tell people that all the time. Just why are you even communicating? Why continue the madness? No reason.
Yeah. I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble at. That negative entity comes through and tries to communicate, and they acknowledge it and give it the power to communicate back with them, and that's where the problem lies in itself. Because at that point, I think it comes through and opens the door and basically invites it into your home, so to speak. And that's how a lot of people get possessed or whatnot and things of that nature when dealing with it.
Yeah, I think, it's not a toy. It's not a game. Although I will tell you this, has an interesting history. When it was first patented and trademarked in the United States, it was patented and trademarked under a novelty item or a toy. So it really was made to be a game. It's interesting because when you look at it that way and frivolously and joking around, you get that same kind of energy. It's very fascinating how we attract to ourselves with this tool what we put out. So I just been really, really careful. This was very natural for me for some reason, even as a young child, to get such great results. And it just got better as I educated myself really about spiritual laws and working with energies and my own light within and things of that nature. We could definitely talk more about that. But then I realized when you use this, it becomes a device, it's a tool. And truly, it's not the tool device that does any of this work. It's really the operator, the person who uses the tool. So it's like you have a hammer, and it's not that your hammer builds the house. You using the hammer helps to build the house. And so me using the tool, I can reach into these realms. But if I take away this device, I can still reach into these realms as long as I developed other facets within myself to do this kind of connective work. And that's what I've done over the years.
That's awesome. it's really interesting and intriguing. Now, I mean, whenever you go to do a session, what I mean, is there any advice that you would give people to kind of protect themselves from the negative energy to come through, or anything like that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I tell people I can't stress enough how important it is that what space you are in. Meaning, I don't necessarily mean literally physically, but that doesn't matter. I mean more about your own internal space. And I always say get into either a space of neutrality or a space of even uplifted energies, and that helps raise your vibration. How this works with any type of any dimension or realm, we all are vibratory beings. We know that everything is vibrating at a certain rate, and the rate of its vibration is called its frequency. And therefore, when you reach into these other realms, there's also these vibrations. Everything's vibration. The whole world is. So you match the vibration of that which you want to communicate with. So by raising your own internal vibrations into a space of, like I either said, neutrality or more uplifted, you will attract that to you. That's one of the most important things that anybody can do, whether they're doing this work with a board, tarot cards, dowsing rods, a K2 meter, a Frank box, is getting your energy in the right place, because your energy is what's going to propel you, bring you into the realm, as well as attract back to you. And it's like, okay, I liken it to this. I like to say it's almost like a wireless phone, or even just regular telephone plugged into the wall. You have to dial a certain number, and that's the frequency you dial. And how you do it in this realm is through your energy. So you dial it up that way. That's why I call in the different beings, is getting the right vibration to reach their signature vibration, and they come through. Now this protects me. This also protects me. Raising my vibration is a way to place that light around me, to let it exude within me and outside of me, and that in itself becomes protection. I always say that's the most important thing to do. And the other piece is doing a lot of work on yourself outside of using these tools, meaning finding your own way to be grounded, finding your own way to feel protected, finding your own way to be centered within yourself. A lot of people use meditation for that, or yoga. People might use journaling or writing, doing creative things, going for long walks in nature, ways to ground and center yourself. And those two things, grounding and centering yourself, along with raising your own internal vibration, is really the gist of how to use this tool and get really positive results.
That's definitely good advice. I think, like you said, it goes into the energy that you're putting out, and it's all about your intentions. If you're in a depressed and down state and you're using the Ouija board, it's not a good idea to be using the Ouija board at that time. You want to be in high spirits to kind of embrace the lighter energy, so to speak, instead of being down. And I've read a little bit about the Ouija board and stuff, and you want to be in a calm place, not like the environment you're in, but you want to be in calm within yourself. You want to be in a happy, so to speak, happy place. Something like that versus dark. And I've also, and I've seen several people use them in their home, but they say you're not supposed to. Why
well, I don't know why they say that. Why do they say that you've heard?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because you're opening the chance of bringing a darker entity into your home. Now, I know one place they definitely say that you don't use them as in a graveyard.
Well, I used to use them in the graveyard all the time when I was in college, and it was really quite a thrill. Everything they say you're not supposed to do, I have done with the board, and I'm here to. I knew we'd get along great. I think there's something to be said about that. People have a lot of fears and they want to project them onto everybody else. So they create these rules to try to control. And I'm here to be the first one to tell you there are no rules to the board. It's what you want to get. Then you create your ritual, if you will, or your system around using this tool. And that's what I have done. And you remember when I was using the board, there was no internet when I was doing this. There was really hardly any books out there at all. There was nothing. I had nobody to rely on but myself. And so just somehow I worked my way through this and navigated myself with this tool and realized there don't have to be any rules other than what you want to put into it yourself. Now, I do have my own, again, I have my own system for using this tool because it's worked very well for me over the years. And I've taught the system to a lot of people too. And I do talk about it in my books, and I talk about it on my shows, and like this show here and other shows I do. And because I think it is important to figure out something. And I love that you say, don't be in these negative spaces when you're using this tool and internally. And yes, you if you are, that's what you're going to get, a negativity. And so I just don't want that. I mean, life is hard enough as it is, isn't it? We all have our ups and downs. The last thing I want to do is bring more that into my life. Now, I use the board all the time in my house. I always have. I've used it in every single room in my house. I use it outdoors sometimes. I've used it in a swimming pool. I've used it in so many places. It's not even funny because I have no fear about it. It's just a tool. It's just a piece of wood, cardboard. It's just masonite. It's nothing. It's neutral. That's all. It's neutral. And so it's me. I rely on myself. Now, people can easily sit there in their house, light a candle, and pull in negativity to them. You don't need a board. So I'm just saying, anytime, even in your house, it's not the board that's going to bring in the negativity. It's the person using the board that's going to bring it in. It's never the board. I just got to remind everybody that it's ourselves that do this work.
Yeah, it's never the board. And like you said, even in paranormal investigating, like we do, if you go in with a negative attitude or negative intentions, you're going to bring out the negative. If there's anything dark there that's going to affect you or whatnot, then you'll find it there. If you're in that type of mood, that type of spirit, you'll definitely find it there. That's for sure.
Precisely. Very well said. It's ourselves. And so when we go into those spaces and provoke and the energies that are there and we're negative about it, I mean, it's hard not to sometimes fight back,
Yeah.
And then you pull out that part. If you're dealing with some spirits that are in the lower astral levels, there's a stuckness there and there's a staleness, and then they could be holding on to emotions that when they were human, and if they were angry, or whatever they're feeling, there's those feelings there, and then you're going to constellate those feelings from them as opposed to a different side to them. I mean, I believe we're all light beings. I mean, it's proven that we're all made out of these, like I said, moving molecules. We're all made of light. Within us inherently is light, and then we do get it clouded up and we get our negativity, and we can definitely bring that out in ourselves and bring it out in people and in spirits. And so my goal has never been to do that. Although I've messed around with every single avenue or aspect of this tool, like even going in the graveyard. I didn't have any bad experiences in the graveyard. I think overall it was probably disrespectful when I think back on it, but I did speak to a lot of different spirits, and I think for me, I was young enough that I really enjoyed the rush of it, and it was more to see if I could scare myself. And back then I was using this more as I didn't understand it more as a tool. I was using it more as, kind of a novelty item. How far can I push it? How far can I push these boundaries?
Yeah.
But since then, and we could talk about some of the things that changed me in my way I think about this from a game or toy to a tool. There's some things that happened to me that were so profound that now when I work with the spirits, it's just crazy cool. It's so high and elevated, and it's again, it helps me in my life. It's life changing and life affirming, and I would never go backwards with it for that reason.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. Lauren, do you got any questions for Karen?
No.
No? Okay. Well,
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, you will. I know you will.
How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I got a question. I know you do all the work, with the Ouija board. And I think it's awesome. I love it. I mean, just because it's really I guess one of those. I don't want to say complicated objects, but it's really cool to experience and to be a part of. why do you? The question is, why do you believe that the Ouija board has been given such a bad reputation then? Because I know like everybody that we talk to says that, I won't touch it. I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I ain't doing it.
It's evil. Basically, it's
Right.
what
I'm just
everybody
scared of it.
explains to be. What?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
You know, can you just elaborate on why you think it's been given that evil part for?
Well, okay, this is an enigmatic toy, device.
Yeah.
So it's mysterious. There's really not a whole lot of rules in the back of the board or back of the box years ago. There was a little bit of rules on how to use it, but it didn't really tell you the depth that people are beginning to explore. And when something's mysterious like this, you can project a lot of things onto it. Meaning we can put our fears on it, we could put our hopes, we could put our desires, we could put everything onto it. And when something goes wrong, we're quick to blame the board as opposed to blame ourselves, the operator of the tool, the person who has the thoughts or the fears. We don't want to look at ourselves, so it's so much easier to point the finger at a helpless little board as a scapegoat. But people have all kinds of different experiences, and it's never to say people's experiences aren't right, because I believe they've had their experiences, whether they're positive or even negative. But I think it's all on how they use the tool and how they view the tool and how they view themselves in relationship to these realms. Now, this tool, when it came out, it was, like I said, it was originally created as a novelty item or as a game, but the spiritualist movement was at its heyday. It's the spiritualist movement in the United States started in 1848 with the Fox sisters and moved on from there. So when this board came out in 1890, the Ouija board we're talking about, the trademark Ouija board, when it came out in 1890 and 1891, hitting the grounds with great sales, people were really fascinated with the spiritualists, and the spiritualists quickly took this tool because they were experimenting with all kinds of devices to communicate with the other side. They grabbed this tool and started using it. And then people all of a sudden, start having experiences. And it's again, it's not because of the board. I know it's not because of the board. It's because the people now were giving themselves permission to interact with these dimensions. And and you got to remember, these dimensions we're talking about mostly has to do with death. We don't know what death is. We don't understand it. Yes, we have glimpses to it from near-death experiences. We hear people's stories, and I can tell you some things I've learned about death from the beings I've spoken with. But yet we don't really know for sure. And so because that's mysterious too, we have a lot of fear about that. What happens when we die? So I think a lot of that fear gets interpreted and placed upon the board, because the board is dealing with this. When you start using it as a spiritualist and you try to use it to communicate with the dead, and I can tell you, I talk to much more than even the dead with this board. It really is I call it my cosmic wireless phone, because I can talk to so many different beings and consciousness we can explore. But when you start there, you usually start with the deceased, because that's what you think it's to be used for, and that's what you'll get, because it's the easiest level of energies or beings to connect with, because they're so close to ourselves, and they're in the lower astral realms, the ones that are stuck, or the ones that have moved on, they're still closest to us, so we can reach them right away. And because of that, I think a lot of stories started, a lot of rumors happened, and people had experiences that maybe were not so pleasant. So things happened over the years, and ever since the board came out, there have been stories written it down, and they might have been in newspapers or clippings or journals that talked about people's terrible experiences. And there's experiences where people say, the board told me to kill so-and-so, and there's actually murder trials because people said they killed somebody because of the Ouija board told them to. Well, maybe the person to start with shouldn't have been using a board, right? They probably had some instability or some, mental illness. My background is a psychotherapist. I know that, that's common. And then you get inner thoughts that tell you to do terrible things like that. But, we blame the board again. But yeah, so there's always been stories coming up. But the most fascinating one, the most convincing story that happened, and I think you guys know where I'm going with this, was when, you know where I'm going. Here it goes. The Exorcist movie came out December 26, 1973, one day after I got my board. That's when the movie was released. And that's when, Hollywood took it. And that's when really the fears just crept into the psyche of the humankind, into human population.
Yeah, that's really what it is. And also, another Before I go into it, before I go into my next question for you, there is a question from Luna on YouTube. She wants to know how many boards do you have?
Well, I have 25. I have a 26th one coming to me, and my oldest board is an 1892-93 circa, one of the original
Wow.
Charles Kennard boards. Charles Kennard's company, Kennard Novelty Company, was making the boards originally, the first Ouija boards, and so I have one of those. I have a 1902, and that is when William Fuld took over the company. He was a varnisher that moved his way up in the company. He took it over, and I have a 1902 board. Those are my two oldest boards. Most of my boards are Ouija boards. I do collect a few different talking boards, but 80% are Ouijas. I love Ouijas boards. I love the history. It's very, very fascinating, and there's so many different designs and different ways that they came out and of making this really cool tool, the Ouija.
Yeah, like I said, me and Justin have always been fascinated. The rest of our group, they're kind of scared of it.
Sure.
But naturally, Jen wants to know if your parents wanted to take the board away from you after the movie came out.
Well, my parents didn't. They have never seen the movie to this day. My parents are still alive.
That movie scared me. That's probably another reason I won't play it.
Right? Yeah, the movie. You know what? The movie is creepy and it is scary. Hollywood did a great job. By the way, you guys, what you got to understand, when Parker Brothers bought the Ouija trademark and the board to make it from the Fuld Company, which the family had owned it since 1902 all the way up to 1966. When Parker Brothers bought it in 1966, it outsold their largest making game, which was Monopoly. In 1967, it sold 2 million copies. So Parker Brothers took it to a whole new level, and you got to remember that this was such a popular item back in the 60s and 70s that when The Exorcist came out, of course, there had to be this part about the Ouija because that was smart, very smart. It scared the heck out of people, and it made people get curious and also make people want to go buy more Ouijas.
Yeah, and I think in that aspect of it, I think that overall, the movie The Exorcist helped make popularize, you can say, the Ouija board and increase their sales as well. And it's kind of funny because you figure that would have scared the hell out of them enough to where they're like, oh, I ain't touching that damn thing. But people, crazy people, well, not crazy. What's crazy and what's normal? No,
right.
But no, people like us that go out here and do this shit on a day-to-day basis, we're like, oh yeah, let's go get it and try it. Let's go see what we can. Let's go see what we can conjure up, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. Well, you humans are curious by nature. That's the beauty of being a human, being born in this third dimension. We really get an opportunity to explore, and we are curious. And so many of us, and fear, and curiosity and fear, it's like an adrenaline rush. When you're curious about something, you want to go explore it. And fear does the same thing too. It gives you that adrenaline rush, whether it's a positive or negative. It still gives you that rush. And we're kind of like adrenaline junkies. And so I can see why people really wanted the board. Now, after seeing that movie, now look, I never saw the movie till I was probably about 18. I was a lot older when I finally saw it. So a good 10 years went by at least before I saw it. And I thought, oh, that's so stupid. When I saw that, I go, that's so dumb. That's not how it really works anyway. Because I had already, at that point, I had already had 10 years under my belt of using this tool. And I was like, it's very different than that. I mean, overall, yes, the planchette moves around and you can communicate with something, but to get something like that evil off the bat, you would have to be pretty practiced and experienced to do that. That's all I can say.
Oh yeah, well, something interesting that I heard about that movie, about the Exorcist movie, is actually a lot of the people that starred in that film passed away shortly after it. Either during the making or shortly after. There was actually a lot of people that were, I guess you can say, cursed from that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
But it's funny though, because that ain't the first time I've heard I've heard stories like this. There's a lot of these horror films that they do that are based on a true story. And it's almost like you're telling the devil when you're acting those parts out, or death, basically, hey, come and get me. I'm right here. I'm mocking you, basically. It's like, I mean, in all actuality, what do you expect? I mean, you're mocking a demon. You're mocking something. You're basically replaying or reliving that moment when somebody was actually overtaken by a demon. So I think a lot of times that has a lot to do with it. Basically, the demon's all, oh yeah, you want to mock me? I got you. Just hold on a minute. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, there is something to it about drawing energy to you. I mean, you get so involved in a project like that, I can see how you can get into the dark side. We've heard other stories like that. I mean, a more simple example is when they built that Highway 1 that goes through the big Oahu, the island. And when they built that highway that went across the, right, they said that was sacred grounds for the natives there. And they said, if you dig this up, you're going to be cursed. And so many things happened while they were building that highway that were disasters. People dying, people getting hurt. There's all kinds of negative stuff because you're kind of like stirring up some things there. Be careful what you stir up.
Oh yeah, definitely, and you was mentioning earlier. You mentioned earlier, basically, we do what we're told not to do, and
yeah,
and it's just funny that you brought up the Indian, the native territory. There's actually a location here in Arkansas. It's not in Arkansas. It's actually in Oklahoma, known as Spiro Mounds. Indian burial grounds, and we've investigated there on a couple occasions. You wouldn't believe some of the things we caught out there, some of the energies that we felt, some of the things that we captured. Like, there's a wooded area out there, and I just put a new battery in my SB11 spirit box, and I was gonna walk, and I was getting ready to walk through there, and Justin was with me. I was getting ready to walk through the wooded area, and right as I got to the edge of the wooded area, my spirit box just like died. And I said, I can't believe this. On the recorder, you hear me say, I can't believe this. They just killed my spirit box. And you hear one entity come through and go, drained it. And then about 5 seconds after that, you hear another entity yell at me on the recorder.
Wow.
They said no.
That's amazing. I love stories like that. I mean, I do. And I like the fact that you guys were investigating the mounds. That's something I'm very fascinated with.
Oh, that place. I'll let Justin share what he experienced there real quick when we were walking around the trail. When we were walking through the woods on the trail out there.
So we're walking through the path here, and usually I don't take the lead to walk in front. So I just decided that I was going to be the leader, and we're going to walk through the path. So I'm walking through this path, and then we're hearing stuff go on. As we're walking through there, we can hear stuff in the bushes, and basically through the woods is what it's like. And we happen to be going, and I'm just looking forward, and everybody else is looking back, watching and listening through the woods, and I just happen to turn around and go forward a little bit more, and I seen just a black figure walk right in front of me, just like across the path, like not even about maybe 2-3 feet from me. I was just like, look, did anybody else just see that? And everybody else is like, no, we're looking off into the woods, and I'm like, nobody else seen this but me.
I felt
That's
it.
That's great.
Yeah, I felt it, but I didn't actually see it. The reason everybody was turning around is because as we were walking through the woods, I'm super sensitive. Chuck refers to me as a channeler, by the way. But,
I love it.
But no, we're walking through the woods, and there's people talking. There's a group of us. What was there? I say there's about 8 of us, 7 or 8 of us, and we're walking through the woods, and we got our recorder going, and I'm hearing people talk to me from the woods over everybody else. I'm all like, do y'all hear that? And then finally, after they kept saying no, finally I guess it talked loud enough where they could hear it too. And that's why everybody was turning around. We were trying to figure out where it was at because it wasn't none of us. And it cut them off in mid-conversation. It spoke so loud to talk to them. And it's incredible. We actually caught like Indians beating on the drums on the recorder out there.
Oh, that's amazing. Really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. Wasn't it, Lauren?
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, it was crazy though, and you wouldn't believe there was orbs. We caught several awesome light anomalies out there. I'm trying to go back. I was going to go back because Matthew Bennett, he's the host of Introspection here on Beyond the Light. Him and Shay, but he's coming down to Arkansas for the first time, and we're taking him to investigate the old Arkansas hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, which the old Arkansas hospital, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I can't say the exact name of it due to strict privacy clauses.
Okay.
You have to sign to get in there, but I'll message you about it later on after the show. That way you can look it up. But I can say that it's like a miniature version of Waverly Hills.
Oh, God, that's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. That's great.
But the activity, we've been out there, me and Justin have been there, Justin, 13 times. Like, that was the very first location we done a real investigation at besides graveyards. And when we went out there, Justin was a non-believer when we arrived at that hospital. When we left, it was an hour car ride home. Justin didn't say one word to anybody.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, he was dead silent. But if you ever get a chance to come out to Arkansas, that we'll definitely have to go there and show you what it's like. That place, you talk about full body apparitions. It's the only location.
Oh, that's great.
It's the only location I've actually seen a full body apparition with my own eyes at, like just standing there looking at me down the hallway. And then a bright white light flashes over his head and he was gone. It was incredible. But yeah, he's going to be coming down here, and I was hoping he's going to be coming down here. It'll be his first trip to the old hospital. But
wow.
I was hoping to get to do Spyro Mounds while he was down here, but unfortunately the guy that runs it is going to be out of town that Saturday when we were trying to get in there, so we're going to have to make it for another time. But yes, I love Indian territory, and another one that's always real active for me, or that's always real active for us, or a lot of activity, it seems, when it comes to the Masonic buildings. Any of the Freemason buildings. We got to do an old Masonic lodge a few times in Van Buren, Arkansas, and that place was incredible. I actually caught a purple entity. It was a purple entity around the corner on video. It's actually on our YouTube channel. You'll look it up. It's when you go on our YouTube channel, it's Marcia Cooksey's. It's an EVP session, but in the middle of it, we put that video clip in there and a few of the pictures we caught. Everybody out there listening, y'all definitely have to check that out. You'll be able to see that purple entity round the corner on the video. And what's funny about that is you don't hear it on the video because we cut the part out, we clipped it out. But on the actual video itself, moments before I captured that, and I didn't see it on the camcorder at the time, by the way. I didn't see it till we were watching the video. But moments before we captured that, there's a portal. There's a portal in this Freemason building that they were talking about, and that the entities travel from building to building in downtown Van Buren there. And they had locked us out. They had locked us out of the portal. So they had to pick the lock to get the portal door open. Well, right after you hear him say, "I got the portal open," that's when I caught that entity around the corner, that purple figure.
Yeah, it's like.
Oh goodness. Now, do you guys ever use night vision goggles when you're doing any of this work, investigations?
I haven't, but I want to. I would love to. Mainly, I just use my infrared cameras and stuff. But
Sure.
I think that night vision goggles. I think that's a good idea, Justin.
It might be.
I just got into night vision goggles myself in the last several months, and I have seen incredible like orbs, like things you don't see with your plain eyes, just in my yard. I mean,
Wow.
some interesting lights at night. I've seen some really interesting flying machines like triangle crafts and stuff. I've seen some really, really cool stuff. So, I do enjoy exploring with the board, but I do so much more exploring even off the board. And that's what it sounds like you guys are doing, all the exploration you're doing too. It's really, to me, doing this, going and exploring like you guys are doing and using your boxes and all these things and me using my tools, it's like it allows you just to understand that the world is so much more than we've been told and taught.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've discussed this on previous episodes. Like, why do you think children are more susceptible to the paranormal? Well, that answer's obvious to me. That answer's easy to me. What I feel about that is we're trained from a young age to not believe in this stuff. It ain't real. It's just in our heads. We're making this up. So a lot of adults are very close-minded to it when they grow up because their whole life they were told otherwise. They were told, oh, don't believe in that. That's not real. That's just in your head. And then once you close your mind off to it, of course, you're not really going to experience it. But children, they're open to all of that. They haven't been taught otherwise. They haven't been
Innocent minds.
Yeah, they haven't been told. Oh, well, you tell them don't believe in it, but that don't matter. They're not young enough.
Their imagination is just
that.
They just have a good imagination. You know what I mean? Not in a negative way, but they're just so open-minded. Like,
and that's key what you're saying right there. I think we misunderstand our imagination. I wrote a lot about this in my third book, The Spirit of Alchemy. I talked a lot about the imagination and how that is truly our faculty to be able to reach into the other realms. When you start working with this tool, that's what they use when you actually meditate too. It becomes your imagination, which is not a negative thing. Like, it's not like fake, it's real. That's how you start journeying into these different realms. And that's what kids are able to do. Like you said, I love that. The innocence of a child. The spirit guides I work with now, they often help people learn to do this work with a board or without a board, but how to start reaching into the other realms. And the thing that they teach me that's critical is to see the world with the innocence of a child, just like you said, Lauren, with the innocence of a child, and then you begin to start seeing the spirits. The alien, we're talking about aliens, and on the Spreaker page, I'm talking to people about aliens. You start seeing these things, and I saw them all as a child. I saw the aliens, I saw the spirit beings, and as soon as I was told, you're not supposed to do that, that's not real, I put it away, and then I was able to finally, it started coming back for me over the years, and now I'm back to a place where I'm starting to experience these things again. But I have to remind myself to be a child. You remember what it was like when you were a kid and you'd lay on the grass and look up at the clouds and you felt like you could move those clouds into shapes and you could spend hours doing it. It's having that kind of playfulness about it that really allows us to reach into these other realms. I'm so glad you guys brought that up.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's 100% true. And me personally, even like, I've always been somewhat of a believer in it. I've always had like moments where I was like, okay, what the hell was that? And then I just kind of brushed it off because of what we're taught growing up. That ain't real. That ain't this. That ain't that. And then until I started doing it, and now I notice the longer you do it, the more open you become to it.
Yes.
The more you start to see things that you wouldn't normally see before. And Justin, didn't you say your mom swears up and down she's seen aliens too before?
I love it.
Yeah. His mom. I think she told me about that. She saw. When was that? When she was younger?
When my brother was a baby.
Yeah, when his brother. What did she say happened when she seen him?
Yeah, let's hear the story. I'm really interested.
she said that she was. Let me see. It's been a while since she's told me the story, but it's when my older brother, when he was a baby, he's 40, and I'm yeah. And she said that she went outside, and she seen this. I guess I don't really know how you describe it, but it was a big ass, like a big, like huge bright light, big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because she lived out here in this house and it had like a field. I think that my parents, like, I don't remember where they were. I don't. She would have to tell the story, or she would tell me again, and I could refer it back. But she was out there and she seen this field, in this field, and she seen this big white light, like it lit up the whole field. And she said she looked at it in its general direction, and then all of a sudden, like, it just shot and was gone. Like, it was there. She seen it, like, lit the whole field up, and then instantly was just there and gone. Like, instantly.
Wow.
She couldn't
Wow.
see
Very
whether
cool.
It was like, she couldn't tell if it was like, the spaceship, that everybody talks about or whatever it was, but she just seen a big bright ass light in the middle of a field and just shot off, gone. And I'm just like, yeah, I have to see it to believe that one. I don't know, but that's crazy. But she swears to God, like, she'll tell me, like, no, I seen that shit. That shit was real. And I'm just like, Mom, are you sure you weren't, something was not going on there? No, I know my mom and it wasn't, but I take her word for it.
Yeah. When you have that kind of experience, you will never forget it, and you will. I know that feeling, and you will stand by your word till the end. You can't deny it when it's that. When you've seen something that's extraordinary, which is beyond the normal realm of what we're told. I mean, it's quite amazing. So that's a great story, and I'm glad to hear that she still tells it.
Yeah, it's I can't really go. I don't really know how the whole story went. I just because it's been forever since I've heard it. But
now I did see that you put that question in chat, Karen, about aliens or whatnot. April says she has a few times.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is I didn't know much about Brett. Brett's he's an awesome guy. He's amazing. He was just like a surprise guest because basically last week we'd initially had Antonio Zamudo, and he's from Mexico City, that was supposed to come on, and something happened where he couldn't come on, and I couldn't get a hold of him. So just kind of about an hour into the show, and it just so happened that it was Chuck's guest that same night before our show, and I didn't even realize it until I seen who he was. But yeah, he was talking about aliens, and me and him had a little bit of conversation, and what's funny is I haven't told Justin about this yet, but he said, he told me that me and Justin are going to come in contact with aliens. And he said that Justin's not a believer so much now, but he will be. That was his exact words to me.
that's crazy.
Very interesting.
Yeah, he said something about us dealing with aliens real soon or something like that. Now, me personally, of course, everybody's seen them on TV, videos on the internet of aliens and heard of them, and they made movies about them, but as far as actually seeing one yet, I haven't. But I can say I'm a little bit different than Justin. Justin, he's skeptical of it, which a lot of people would be until you've actually seen it or experienced it for yourself. But me, I'm a believer. I'm not going to say I'm not. I believe that they exist. I sat down. What's crazy, it's crazy as hell. I sat down with this dude at Taco Bell one day, okay? And I didn't know him from Adam. I didn't know who he was. He always, every time I'd go into this Taco Bell, I'd see him sitting down drawing at the table. You ever seen him in there, Justin?
Yeah, the dude that has the books.
Yeah, and I actually bought one off of him, and hope the government ain't listening, but no, he had different kind of drawings, and he had alien drawings, and he was telling me stories about how he's had run-ins with aliens, and it was just mind-blowing to me, all the things he was telling me. And then he was telling me about all these websites that are like undercover government secrets, and everybody knows the government tries to keep aliens on hush hush. They always have, as bad as that sounds. But I'm not knocking the government. Of course, they don't want society to get freaked out, but that's what we got internet for. Internet does a fine job of freaking a lot of people out. No,
True.
But honestly, as bad as I hate to say it, it may be scary. I may freak out, but I hope to see it one day.
I hope you do too. There's nothing like it, and it changes your perspective, and it helps us awaken more from the slumber that we've been in. It helps us realize that we aren't the only ones out there. I've seen them many times as a child. I still see some things like the crafts in the sky. I think a lot of those that I'm seeing now are black ops, which is probably government. But I've also seen some things that I know aren't. But so I just think it's fascinating when you start doing this work like you're doing. If you're going into these haunted places and you're in the dark, or you're outdoors and you're doing the mounds. And for me too, I'm using the element of the goggles, the night vision goggles, which really adds a whole nother dimension to it. I mean, I couldn't believe this glowing orb I saw just with some friends in my backyard, and we were taking turns going through my goggles, and one of my friends looked and said, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this," and then handed it to me, and I looked, and there was this amazing, huge orb just darting around, but kind of hovered over one of my friends' heads, and then just took off. But we watched it for a while, and it's like, you to pull the goggles down, you're not seeing it with your eyes. So it's like, what this is what I've learned. Our eyes, our physical apparatus, our eyes see only what we believe. When we start going back to the innocence of child, our eyes start seeing more. The third eye develops, and we start to be able to see. That's what I used to do, see all these things. And so I probably didn't need my night vision goggles when I was a kid. I didn't need them. Now I need that little extra help right now to remind me of what's out there and we're not always seeing. So I think it's just a wonderful tool if you guys can get a hold of some and add that to your explorations. It's great. Somebody had a question I wanted to answer. I thought it was a good question. I think I saw it asked twice, if I may. They wanted to know if I've ever used a Ouija board in a haunted location. And so I want to address that, if I may. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly okay.
Okay, great. Yes, I have. And I was invited, and I read about one of the stories. Actually, there's quite a few, actually. I read about a few of these stories in my book, The Spirits of Ouija. But I did write about one really prominent, very big case. It happened on Cielo Drive in Beverly Hills. If anybody's familiar with Cielo Drive, that's where the Charles Manson murders took place.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so I was invited there. Yeah, I was invited there to, a few doors down, where I swear to goodness, there is a portal there. There's an opening, and it's a vortex, and all kinds of things are going in and out. But I went there with my board and one of my board partners, who was good at doing this work with me, but she's also very sensitive as I am, and we just walked through the house, and without knowing too much, I did know that the house was actually a few doors down from where the murders took place. But immediately going I didn't know much about the house other than that. But going through the house, we went to the very lowest room. This house is built on a hill, and it has a lot of floors. I think there's 4 floors. So we went to the very lowest floor immediately. And it was so cold, and we could tell where there was an opening, where there was some kind of vortex going on, and it didn't feel very positive. And we had a sick feeling, and we just went through and just took note of all this. And my friend almost threw up in one spot, and then all of a sudden we got to this one room, and I said, "This is where we're going to do the board." It just felt right. We sat down. And we started getting manifestations such as we heard a breathing, heavy belabored breathing. We started smelling things, just all kinds of just interesting manifestations. My friend was starting to feel a little dizzy in her head, but we let the communications come forward, and we ended up speaking with Sharon Tate. We ended up speaking with Jay Sebring, and also
Awesome.
Stephen Parents. Now, Stephen Parents was the person that was the guy. It was a young boy. He was 19 years old, who was in the car outside when these murders were happening, and somebody in the Manson clan walked right up to him, point gun right to his face, and shot him cold in the face.
Wow.
Most people don't even know about him. I didn't know about him until I got home and did more research. But this guy came through and told us his name was Steven, and my friend could see what he looked like, and she didn't know anything about him either. But anyway, so we go upstairs and we talk to the owner of the home, and I said, downstairs, your lowest room. That's where all the activity is. We believe there's a voice. He goes, oh my God, everybody tells me that. He goes, it gets cold down there. I go, yep. I said, we just spoke with these people. And I'm not going to ruin it and say, because it's in my book, but they gave me a message and they said they're going to stay until this message is presented publicly. So I told this person who owns the house, I said, they want you to go forward and tell this information. And he says he won't. I think he enjoys having the spirits there, but they're upset because they have a message that they want to give. Now, remember Sharon Tate, when she was murdered, she was pregnant. And she was pregnant with a baby, and it was a little girl. And the baby has moved on. I did talk to him about that. And Roman Polanski was her husband. And supposedly he was supposed to be the father of this child. That's all I'm going to say. But they have a message to tell that's related to some of the stuff I'm talking about. That was an incredible experience. They were not angry. They were not mad. They've moved beyond that. They were really they have this message that was urgent for them to get that out, and nobody's willing to give that message out. I put it in my book. It's out of my book what the message is. Also, I've done other kinds of haunted places that are considered paranormal and had great results. I would say it's because I go in there. I don't provoke. I'm very open to hearing anybody's experience that they have to give me. I want to hear their side of the story, and beyond, what everybody says, oh, this person died because of this reason, this person was shot. I get more information. The coolest thing about this work, using this tool, and this is what I love about, one of the reasons why I love using this tool, is that how spirit is non-local. And so that means you could be anywhere with this tool and connect with spirit, or just myself as a medium or psychic, they can do that too. You can connect with anything, anywhere, and you don't have to be in that locale to make the connection. I've done other kinds of investigations where I'm not even present and get all kinds of information because, again, you're not, it's spirit in the other dimensions is able to be anywhere and everywhere, and there's no sense of space-time continuum that we have here. In the third dimension, it's very different, and so you can contact anything from any dimension, and not have to be in the presence to do that. So I learned that as I got a lot further along with this tool. I started understanding this about 13 years after using the board. And then things really changed for me around that time when I could communicate with all kinds of beings anywhere in the universe. And then that's kind of where my odyssey went, and the stories that I pretty much talk about now.
That's very interesting. I've seen others use a Ouija board. When I think of Ouija boards, and Lauren actually introduced me to these guys. He's nuts, but we all are. So I give him props to that. And you probably know who I'm talking about. They're well known. They're YouTubers. They're big time YouTubers. They got a lot of followers. And every time they go live, they use a Ouija board. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but it's a group by the name of Live Sci-Fi.
Oh no, I don't know them.
Oh yeah, they got like, I think they got like 1 million or 2 million subscribers, maybe more. I don't remember for sure, but they got a lot of subscribers, and like. Except they're not afraid. They communicate with the dark entities too. Like,
oh sure, yeah.
It's crazy. Like, they'll get on there and they say, "Don't play the Ouija board by yourself." Like you said, he does it. He plays it by himself. He ain't messing.
Well, no. You can use the board by yourself. You really can. We could talk about that too, but you can.
Awesome. Yeah. Well,
he's always on it.
Yeah. There was this one episode. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, being in working with the Ouija board so much, and they isolate themselves with the board. Basically, there's two people, one on each side of the board, and one person is asking questions, but the other person has this mask over their face, and they got like black balls covering their eyes, and they got headphones on, playing music. So
it's like all their senses are covered, like they're hearing, they're seeing, and
Oh
they're
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they can't hear what questions the other person
smell
is
and all that.
asking or see what the board is saying, but they're saying what the board is saying with all this on. They can't see or hear. It's like they're isolated with the board.
And they do that also to let the spirit take over, use them.
Yeah.
So they're like just making their body empty, kind of feeling.
Oh,
So
I get it. Sure.
Yeah, isolating themselves.
And there was like one episode they done where after he done this, and Justin seen it.
It's dangerous though.
After he done this, they poured holy water on the back of his neck, and his neck started smoking.
His neck started steaming.
His neck.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's dangerous to do though.
His neck started smoking, and they done it on the other guy that was using the board. It didn't happen to him. Yeah. And then they waited a little bit, poured some more on him, and it was steaming again.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That does sound a little crazy. They're definitely pushing the boundaries of what they want to do. That's cool. My hat's off to them. My work is so different than that. I push the boundaries in different ways. But okay. So let's talk about using the board by yourself and if that's good or not acceptable. Yeah. I think. Yes, it is acceptable. This is the thing. I often recommend people don't in the beginning because it's a lot harder to learn to use this tool by yourself. It can take a lot more time, and people's patience may not be that long at times. And so that's what it really requires. And then also when you start using it by yourself, you don't know if it's your medium motor, your fine muscle movements of your brain pushing it. You question that. When you have another person, you can let go a little bit easier. The other thing I've seen with people that use it alone, if they tend to be alone a lot, and they just kind of become reclusive, or they rely on the board too much. That's the other thing I've seen. But having said that, there's a healthy way also. I learned to finally, after 39 years of using the board by myself, just took me 39 years. Listen, I still really enjoy having a partner. If you go to my YouTube show, you'll see one of my partners I work with most predominantly. His name is Rodney, and we do a lot of work on the board together. Now, why I like that for me and why I recommend other people, if they can get a partner, is it helps you to have that person there. When you're getting messages in the beginning, especially when you're new at this, you're going to get a lot of gibberish and hogwash and just crap. It's going to not be accurate. And that's what I say to people. That's why a lot of people won't say, I would say don't take these on investigations unless you really know how to use this tool. It's not the place to start is on an investigation. And to believe what you're getting is accurate. Most of the messages and the energies you communicate with, it takes them a lot of time to build up. And you then after a period of time, I don't know how long that'll be for some people, sometimes it's years, sometimes it's months, you're going to realize that you can rely on some of these messages you get. I never do when a new being comes through, but now I have a group. I call them the collective group. They've been coming to me. This one group has been coming to me since 1994, and they're solid, and they're the ones that come through every time, and I totally trust everything they say because of the time and of communicating with them and how their information has been really spot on and really good stuff. But you can learn to do it by yourself. And a lot of people write to me because they don't have a partner and they have to keep this quiet because, they don't want, their family makes fun of them. Their friends do. Yeah, I get it. And so, they learn to use it on their own because that's the only alternative. They don't have an alternative. That's all they can do. And it just takes a lot of time. And so I do talk to people about this a lot, and they still can get really good responses from it as well. What I recommend everybody to do if they do use this tool, it's what I call a bouncer or the spiritualists will call it a control. It's having another being on the other side, whatever dimension you're working in, that can help you be your gatekeeper, your bouncer, your Mr. or Master of ceremonies that helps with the energies when they come through and also keeps them organized. Like I used to get on the board and I would have 15, 20 just popping in. I want to talk to you. Yeah, it was like a party line. And I said, okay, one at a time. And so back then, this is quite a few years ago, I had my bouncer, her name was Wilma Jean, and she moderated my sessions one at a time. And so I really encourage people to try that. A lot of times it becomes your guide. She was a guide with me, and she was with me for about 15 years. She's moved on now. Now this new collective group come in, and they're pretty much the ones that come through the board, and they're my control. Once in a while, something new may come through. Typically, it's when I'm talking to animals or somebody wants me to communicate with a deceased person. Somebody else might come through, but they always come through under the grouping of the group that I work with now. They have to come under that umbrella. So that always helps to have that when you use this tool.
So that's awesome. So you can actually communicate with animals through the board as well.
Oh, yeah. In fact, this is how it started. It was in 1996. I was working on the board talking to my angel at the time, and I used to talk to her a lot. Now she pretty much comes on only when I communicate with the deceased people. She'll come on and be the control, if you will, the bouncer, and help those messages come through. But okay, so I was talking to her back then, and she said, "You're not going to believe this, Karen, but I've got somebody here who wants to talk to you." I'm thinking, okay, well, I've talked to a lot of spirits, no big deal. Bring them on, right on. Cool. I was working with my partner. And she said, okay, the planchette slowed down, the energy changed, and I call that the spirit signature. When you're working the planchette, you really get sensitive to the energy and how it moves. So you begin to recognize also who's coming through. They tell me who they are. I know who they are, but I can recognize their flow. Each one comes in differently, kind of like having a fingerprint. It's their energy is very different. This energy slowed down, went a different direction, and then it spelled out the words that said, "Hermie cat, I love you." I went, what? Now, okay, I had a cat named Hermes. He's very much alive and sitting right there in a chair looking at me as we were doing the session. I said, "Mary Angel, are you telling me my cat just spoke to me?" She said, "Yes. Your cat wanted to come through and speak to you. I wanted you to know, and your cat wants to know that you can talk to animals through this tool." So I've been doing it ever since 1996. That cat had a lot to say. So did his brother, the other cat I had. They're now deceased. I spoke to them after they died. They've moved on. But I have new cats, and I talk to pets. I go beyond just the pets. I talk to wildlife. I talk to all kinds of animals all the time, and I do live shows where people call in and they want their message from their animal, or their animal's sick and they want to. So we just go right to the animals and talk to them. And I have a kind of an oversoul being. It's part of the collective group that represents the animals and comes through and interprets. So how it works is this: the animals don't necessarily speak English, which is my language, right? They don't necessarily speak a communication like we do. Instead, they give images, visions, feelings, and thoughts, and these get interpreted into words. So there's a guide that works with them. And in that case, it was my angel. Now it's this other being that comes through and works with all the animal kingdom and all the different species, and will be their mouthpiece and help with the spelling. And sometimes the animals will come through directly and have a direct message. Sometimes it'll be their oversoul species that'll come through and just talk about animals in general. So yeah, it's really developed. And I've been, like I said, at animal communication since 1996. Wasn't something I thought of. It was something that my cat thought of showing me.
That's awesome. I never thought about trying to communicate with animals. I have seen a ghost dog with my own eyes, though.
Yes.
At a graveyard.
I have too. I've seen ghost animals. And yes, and now remember, now this cat was not dead. You can talk to a live animal. You see, it's all just energy. And so what I've learned is you can talk to people's higher selves that are very much alive. So if you have permission. So I did an experiment from 89 to 93. It was almost close to 4 years with two other friends. We did nothing but speak with our higher selves. And as we did that, we found out that we started developing our connection to our higher self, and things started happening really well and smoothly within our lives. Things started changing in our lives as we did this work with our higher selves. So you can definitely do that. Speak to that part of you that exists beyond your corporeal existence, that's like your soul that exists into the other dimensions, and have incredible conversations. And I highly recommend people to begin having conversations with your higher self, whether you're just writing it down, in a journal, or meditating on it, or even in your dreams. But that really helps open yourself up, and you start developing these skills to even greater levels.
There you go, honey. We can communicate with Caesar and Sophie and Tabby and.
Yes, you can.
Well, I already have to deal with them enough as it is.
We can talk to them. We can talk to them like humans.
I hate to even know what they're saying.
I gotta tell you,
You should probably go,
it's funny the things they have. There's a sense of humor for sure, and there's so much. They live so much in the moment of now. There's not this anger or resentment they hold up like you humans do. We could learn a lot from them.
I'd like to see it. That'd be pretty cool.
It's totally fun, and in one of my books, I shared the Spirits of Ouija. I shared a whole chapter or a section in one of my chapters about animal communication, and shared what some of my cats were saying, and it's just freaking hysterical. It's, they're just, they don't take themselves too seriously, and they're just full of love. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Our dog Sophie, she's part husky, and she talks without using anything. A lot of times, she'll speak to you. It's funny, like the way she barks, and she's a big old girl. She ain't no baby. She's probably, how much does she weigh, honey? Like 80 pounds?
It's like a small kid.
Yeah, she looks like she's almost part Great Dane. Or
wow.
She's bigger. She's a bigger dog, but she's got part husky in her, and how we know is she has a blue eye and a dark eye.
Oh wow, that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's black. She's a solid black color, pretty much. She's got a little bit of white on her, but not much. She's a sweetheart. But it's funny because she'll pinch you when she wants something. Mainly Lauren. She doesn't do it to me that much. She hasn't done it to me really, but whenever
she nips me.
Yeah, she nips her
when she's playing.
That's cute. Well, the animals are constantly talking to us. They sometimes they think it's kind of a weird request when I say, "Hey, you have a message for me? You want to talk to me about something?" They're like, "Well, we talk to you all the time." The truth is, when you're connected to your animals, you really are in communication with them. We just may not want to see it that way, but you are. You know their feeling, you know their thoughts, you know their expressions. I think April mentioned it in there. Yeah, their expressions say it all. That's so true. So we're already in constant communication. It's just now having the awareness that we are. And once you start having that awareness, you're going to start getting more messages from your animals. You don't need a board. All the stuff we're talking about tonight, you don't need a board to do. But yet I found the board had really become my springboard, pun intended, to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. That I never thought about it. I never realized that you could. I never realized that you could communicate with your animals. That's just incredible that you can.
No, I know. Most people don't think about that. But so I've been writing, I talk about it on my YouTube channel, and I write articles about this stuff. I think it's important that people understand the world is not as we've been told. And there's so much more out there. And the board what the board has become for me has been a very tangible device where I could feel the energies. I could see it move. I can feel that. And then I get the spelling. So it's clarity. It's very clear what the messages are. So when I work off the board, it's another whole level or new way of finding discernment. And the discernment comes through our emotions and feelings. So I can also communicate with the animals away from the board. I don't need the board. The board just has become very tangible. And it's a great, for me, it's a great teaching device to help people begin to think about these other dimensions and realms and abilities that we have already within us. And so it just allows people to see that, with the board. It's just, again, very tangible. But yet, everything I'm talking about, I'm going to say it again, we can do this without this tool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And honestly, I feel like I have a conversation with our animals even without a board most of the time. Just their reaction to what you're saying. And like you said, you can feel it. It's like a mutual feeling. You can feel what they're feeling, just like they can feel what you're feeling. When you're
absolutely, that's right. They work off of feelings. That's and when you do this work, you have to work off of feelings too. That becomes your discernment, what you feel, the emotions that you feel. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, when you're having a bad day or you're depressed or you're hurt, they know.
Oh yeah.
And they try, and they know animals have been known. I've had several animals where they'll come and comfort me when I'm sick, when I'm down. Anything like that. It's incredible. Now,
yeah, it's beautiful.
Now, just to switch gears a little bit, now that I got that question that I was going to ask earlier back in my head, there's an entity that comes through the Ouija board that's very well known. Have you ever made contact with? I'm sure you're aware of which one I'm talking about.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. I know Darren Evans and Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who wrote the book. In fact, they interviewed me for the book and had some of my opinions. I'm very steeped in it, not because I really want to be, but because everybody wants to bring me into it. Look, I have no problem with dark energies. I have no problem with it at all. I think that's part of life. I think, we get ourselves can be very dark energies at time. We can get very negative, and that's just part of the human nature to have a dualistic aspect to ourselves, the positive and the light. And so this is what I believe about Zozo. If you want my opinion on it. And again, it's just my opinion. And I do believe things happen with people. And the board, I think, gets sometimes wrongfully blamed, maybe rightfully, but mostly wrongfully. And I think people project their fears onto it. You take the board out of the equation, a lot of times there's all kinds of underlying things going on in those people's lives that tend to have this experience. So what I believe that this Zozo character, and how it's not Oz, Ozy instead of Zio. So I call him Oz or Bozo. So I believe that it is nothing more than an archetypal influence. And I can give you a good example what I mean by that. The example I like to use is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is considered the eternal boy, Peter Pan. He even lived in Never Neverland. He never grew up. He was the boy that became a man, but never grew up. And so the archetypal influence of him, and this is from Jungian psychology, and my background as a Jungian psychotherapist, is that it's called the puer, which is called the eternal boy. And that's one of the archetypal influences people can fall under. There's also one called Puella, which is the eternal girl, the little girl that never wants to grow up, and she might talk like a little girl as an adult. There's things that people do. They constellate this behavior, and it becomes really a part of their life. I mean, Michael Jackson was it's such an example of that. There's also like the Madonna or the whore. Those are archetypal characters. You've got, even Madonna, for real Madonna, she behaves that way too. And that's just what people do. So there's these universal archetypal characters that show up in our lives because we constellate them. We constellate them by falling into the patterns that they exhibit. So somebody that all of a sudden Zozo pops up and their life goes bad, it's because they're drawing that to them. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is a literal energy. It's more like a tulpa, more like a thought form, but it becomes real to them. Whatever we create within our minds, whatever we think we see outside it with our eyes becomes our reality. So, but our mind is what as we talked about earlier, is what really allows our eyes to see. It's what we can only see what our beliefs allow us to see. When you're a child and your beliefs were so much more open, you saw much more. So with this, it's like there's a belief, there's a fear, and it gets constellated, and then they fall prey to this kind of archetypal character, and it's become this archetypal character because it's become part of our folklore. It's become part of the mythology of what people find on the board. And so you can easily draw it and conjure it up and constellate it and experience something. Now, it's not that they're experiencing something that's not real. It's very real to them. But do they have to experience it? No. That's the key thing here. No. And how do you not? By becoming more empowered in your own life. Looking at your fears straight on. We all have them. We tend to bury them in our lives because we're afraid we can't look at them. We're afraid if we look at our fears, all of a sudden that means we're bad or we're evil or there's something wrong with us. But once we start looking at this, my third book is all about this. Once we start looking at ourselves, truly look at ourselves and what it is we don't like about ourselves, all that power, that constellated power dissipates. And next thing you begin to find is all these beautiful gemstones, these beautiful treasures within ourselves. But we have to get through these gatekeepers of this evil kind of stuff that we think is in us. And that's what Zozo is to me. It's just a projection of all this. And yet it becomes very real to a person who has these experiences.
Yeah, that's very true. I agree with you on that aspect. I think it's really about what we bring upon ourselves. And that goes back to even using the board. What your intentions are upon using the board.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're going in there thinking you're gonna bring in something bad, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna bring in that negativity. You're gonna bring in that bad energy. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear about Zozo from that perspective, and it makes more sense than what you see on TV and people experience it and stuff like that. It's all about your intentions and what you believe is going to happen or what you're wanting to happen.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with what's going on in your life too. Sometimes you'll find that sometimes when these experiences, people are either imbibing on some substances sometimes, or they've got just a lot of mayhem in their life. I mean, we all have consternation from time to time, and definitely using this tool is not the time, because when you start bringing up those fears, you start drawing it to you, start drawing the lower energies to you. You create it, you become it, and there's no need for that. So we really have to look at all that. It's like there's so many facets to this. When you start working in these realms, there's so many other pieces that go into this equation, and so it's just important. Again, I can't stress it enough to really get centered within ourselves first before embarking on any of these kinds of tools or this work, and finding a way to know that you are really an empowered being, that you really are not just a pawn or a victim to circumstances or life, that you really are an active creator within your life.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, have you ever had a negative experience with the board?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I had, they come on and cuss and say some things. I remember one. Here's an example. I was working the board with one of my brothers. One of my brothers is very good at using this tool, and we would use it a lot during my younger years. And this, let me see, I want to say this was 1986, maybe 85, and I think I put this in my book. It is in my book when I think about it, because I wanted to share that that can happen too. So I have this being come through, and he called himself ECTUA, Actua, which it just seems like a Latin word or something. It really means nothing. But so he came through and said, and just started belittling me. I was studying psychology at the time. That's my undergraduate degrees in psychology. And I think at that time I was a junior in college or something. But he was belittling me, and I didn't know enough and all this stuff. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to talk to you. You know what? It's hard enough just getting through school. I listened to him for a moment, and I told my brother, I said, you know what? This is stupid. We're not going to listen to this. He goes, yeah, this is lame-o. And he was starting to cuss at us. As soon as I said that, you're lame or whatever, he started cussing and spelled it out. And I said, we're done. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, we're just not going to do this anymore. That's what I used to do as a kid. I put the board away. So I wiped it off, said, you can't talk to me this way. Got back on the board, and in comes Wilma Jean. And then now Wilma Jean then was with me for 15 years, and she became a spirit guide. And she said, yeah, I didn't like that energy either. I was waiting to come in and talk to you, but I needed you to get rid of that first so I could come through. And so, yeah, that would be my extent of negative. I never let it go too far, because I just don't let people talk to me that way in life anyway. So I'm not going to allow it, definitely, on a stupid board.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Lauren, do you have any questions for Karen? How about you, Justin? You got anything you want to know about?
No, I asked mine. I'm just enjoying. I'm just sitting here just listening.
Yeah,
Me too.
A second ago, I don't know how many people are still watching us on YouTube. I actually...
he has a Ouija board.
Yeah, I actually have a Ouija board myself.
Oh, you have it there with you? Let's see it.
It's the one from, I'll show you.
I'd love to see it. Yeah. What year is it? Is it a recent one, or?
Yeah, it's a recent one. Yeah.
Is it by Winning Moves by chance?
Hasbro.
Or Hasbro?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few of the more recent. I have a couple of I have two of the more recent ones. I really like the older boards, but I'd love to see what boards you have.
The only thing I don't like about this one is it's small. It's small.
Oh, is it the glow in the dark board? That one's pretty small.
Yeah, it is. Now,
okay.
I don't have the planchette for it because when I moved, because on that and when using it, it says you're supposed to separate the planchette from the board.
No, you don't have to do that.
You don't? I didn't know.
No. People, again, these are these rules people make up to take care of their own fears.
I got you.
Yeah, no. In fact, right now I have a board. Let me see. I've got planchets all over the place. I have my boards all over my house. I mean, hanging on the walls. They're in my living room. I have my planchets sitting on my board downstairs. I was using it earlier. No, that's just that's a wives' tale. That's a folklore. That's just something
awesome.
made up. Yeah, no, it's totally fine. In fact, I know people, for example, Robert Murch. He is our president, the chairman of the board of the Talking Board Historical Society, which I'm one of the directors on that group. And he has over 1,000 boards, and not one thing has ever happened to him. I know people with hundreds of boards in their home, and nothing happens, and they have planchettes all over the place. But yeah, let's see your board if you have it. Do you have it there to show us?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Now I have that glow in the dark board. That one's actually hanging on my wall. I love it because at night when all my lights are off, it glows. It glows in my living room. I love it. But that one is a good traveling board. I like smaller boards for traveling, and I have this little cute round one that's no bigger than smaller than a plate, a regular sized dinner plate, and it has a round planchette. And I'll travel with that one a lot too because it's made out of a plexi kind of material it won't break. So yeah, you can. That's a good board if you want to take it somewhere and travel with it. It fit in your suitcase. It's small enough. It's a cute little board to have.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like when I've only used it once. I bought it. I've only used
What?
Yeah, I've only used it once because of course Lauren's afraid of it. She's one of those that's afraid of it. So, but me and Justin, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is stuff out there to be scared of, but we're not really afraid of a whole lot. We have been forced to run by an entity, and everybody in the chat has heard this story. At that old hospital. Speaking of, since you brought up the Exorcist movie.
Yep.
We were at the old hospital, and we were in the basement in the morgue area, and it was dead. No pun intended there. Like I said last night, it was dead. It was like the entities weren't really reacting, so I had the bright idea to dare Justin to tell him the power of Christ compels you, and so Justin says it. And then we start chanting it in unison. And I could tell instantly that we had done got their attention because in a matter of moments, in a matter of seconds, we start laughing. We'll joke around. We're very serious about what we do, but we like to joke around and have a good time at the same time. But at that moment, we both hear with our own ears entity, a loud male voice yell at us to go from right behind where he's standing, and Justin's eyes got as big as round as saucers, and he's all like, "What do we do? What do we do?" I said, "We go, go, go," and in that moment, like you want to stay there, but you can't. Yeah. Your feet won't stay planted. Your brain's like, "We got to get the hell out of here."
Oh, so I was just frozen. I was just like. Because I was standing right inside the doorway, like not inside the doorway, but my back was turned to it where it came from. So that shit, when it yelled like right into my ear, but it just echoed throughout the whole basement. And I'm just like looking at Dwayne like, what the hell, man? Are we gonna stay or are we gonna give it what it wants? And he was all, no, we're running, we're getting the hell out of here. And he takes off running, and I'm like, oh hell no, you're not gonna leave me behind. And then boom, we're running together. And at the time that we did, what's crazy about the whole thing is our lead investigator was coming down the basement stairs, and we about knocked him down to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
That's how fast we were running out of there. And then as we're running out, we could hear footsteps behind us, like it was chasing us. Because the basement there, it kind of floods where there's water down in there, because the moisture and everything from being in there. So the water never dries up. So as we're running, you could hear our footsteps, clearly, because we're running, making pretty big steps. But as behind it, we could still hear the echo of steps through the water, like it was chasing us. It was making sure that we were leaving.
Oh, I can imagine. And I can only imagine, I've been in some situations where you get some kind of feedback like that. You hear something, you experience something, a touching or a smell, like I said before. It's like it changes you. It definitely, and it's hard not to want to turn on a dime and get the heck out of there. It's just not always. It's sometimes shocking. I could say that it's sometimes shocking. Not to say using the board. I've never felt that. I've never felt shocked by the board. I always felt more comforted, I would say, when I communicate with the spirits.
Yeah. Speaking of earlier, we had briefly discussed aliens,
Oh yeah.
and since we're on that, and I said I've never seen an alien.
Uh-huh.
According to Brett, that entity that I seen in the old hospital on the second floor, standing in the middle of the hallway, was one.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
he said that because he was describing what I seen without me even telling him what I seen, without even really telling me, and he said it wasn't supposed to be there. It was just curious,
Oh.
and I wasn't supposed to see him. Which when I turned around, he was like, the entity is basically like, "Oh shit!" And he said that's why the light went downwards when it disappeared, because it like left into another plane basically whenever it went down. He said according to him, what I saw wasn't actually an entity. It was something that didn't belong there. It was actually an alien. And that was crazy when he told me that. It kind of blew me away. But then at the same time, when he sat there and described like word for word what I saw without knowing anything about it, without
Yeah,
me
that's interesting.
describing what it said. I mean, it's one thing to just tell me, "Oh, that was an alien you saw," but what really got my attention and really made me understand and believe that, without a shadow of a doubt, that very possibly could have been what I saw. When he started describing what I seen and everything, that was a whole different story. I was like, "Wow, okay." That now I do got another question here for you. Have you?
Great.
Because I know you said that you went to Charles Manson's house, or where the murders and stuff happened.
Yes. Hmm.
Outside of that, have you ever communicated with a dead person, a famous person that passed on?
I get asked that question a lot, and then I always say no. And then I remember I was just relaxing one day, and I go, yeah, I have. And I'm trying to remember. I've spoken to a few, and I always forget to mention these. But okay, Andy Williams was
Okay.
somebody I spoke with. One time. Somebody, I shouldn't say too much, but somebody who knew his family very well and also knew him wanted me to reach out and see if there was anything that he wanted to say. And he did give me a message that was personal to the family that I gave to this person to give to them.
Yeah.
So there was that person. I typically don't unless somebody has a reason to, or ask me, and there's something they want. I'm not so curious about famous people so much. I really don't even care. Although I wouldn't mind talking to Leonardo da Vinci, although I have not tried to. That would be somebody I might try to, or somebody like even Thomas Jefferson, just to understand like the founding of our country. But I love Leonardo da Vinci. He's one of my favorite inventors of all time. I think he's probably one of the smartest brains we've ever had alive. There's been others. I wouldn't mind talking to Tesla, but I haven't tried that. I guess every time I sit at the board, there's so many other interesting things that I'm doing and other beings I'm talking to that's what I end up doing. So yeah, I don't really go that direction, but I know other people who use the board who do that. That's what they focus on, is talking to famous people.
Yeah, there's one. I don't know. I don't want to say it. I don't want to really say it out because I don't want people to bash us or anything like that. But there is
Yeah.
one. There is one that I want to talk to, and I'm going to talk to. And he recently passed away.
Oh.
He was a musician. I can't tell you all that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he actually passed away in 2017. The way he passed away was terrible. suicide.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you may be familiar with who I'm talking about. You may not.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple musicians that passed away
Yep.
via suicide last year, and I actually saw a video where someone was talking to him, not to
Okay.
him, not to the one that I want to communicate with. But I'll go ahead and say the other one's name, Chris Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
From Soundgarden. It was pretty interesting because
Oh, yeah.
they were talking to him and they were getting relevant answers, and that's how it confirmed that it was really him that they were communicating with. And Chuck's actually gonna help me contact the other person.
Good.
Yeah, he's gonna help me.
Good.
But he told me that we're going to need to ground ourselves for this one because, as you know, suicide's a very tragic way to die, and there's usually some darker forces at work in suicides.
Yeah, it's a terrible shame. I have spoken with beings who have committed suicide. And this is what I do want to maybe talk about suicide just for a moment too. Yeah, and I used to, as a therapist too, I have dealt with this the idea of suicide ideation. I used to also work on a hotline, a suicide hotline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for a while in the city of Portland, Oregon. I did that for a little bit in between some jobs I was doing. It was a really hectic position, and it just requires your utmost focus. It's very intense, and it's not the easiest thing to do. But I do want to say this: what I've learned about suicide, just from talking to the beings that have committed suicide, and also from my spirit guides, it's yes, it is a darker energy. You're absolutely right, and I do think it's smart to really ground yourself and be prepared when you work with these beings. That especially if you talk with Chris or anybody else that's done this. I do want to say that it's never the answer, and I will say this from a perspective of spirituality. What happens when you commit suicide is what I've learned is that you come back and have to repeat the same things that got you in that place this time when you took your life or left. I know people get in a very bad place at times. That's a normal part of living, and sometimes such a bad place where they don't see any other answer. And I've actually known some people who have committed suicide who I would consider they were friends of mine at one time, and it's amazing how people, when you start thinking about it, how many people you do know that have, or you're influenced by it. It's something that touches all of us. But what I've learned is that they have to go back and repeat that stuff that got them in the exact same place and see if they can get through it, because our soul is always trying to evolve and grow. And when you come into this dimension of the third dimension, especially on planet Earth, this is what we're here to do. It's one of the hardest places to be because we don't have memory of our greatness. We don't have memory of our higher self. We don't have memory of the light. We don't have memory of the divine within us. We don't even have memory of our past life for the most part. Some children do. Some people, do regression work. I did a lot of that as a therapist, help people remember their past lives for certain reasons. But we don't necessarily have that ability to do that. So we come here and we come in blind in a way and thrown in here, and we have to really attempt to explore all these things we set up for ourselves in our life to experience. And we put ourselves in positions that are tough. Our soul knows that we can handle it when we're here, but sometimes we just get so inundated that we forget that we can handle it, and then somebody ends up taking their life. Well, they're going to have to go back and repeat some things and learn some things. But I'll tell you what, they're never punished. They're very much loved. They're loved, and you're always loved when you pass over. At least what I learned from the guides and everybody I talk with, there's nothing but love, and they're shrouded and surrounded in love. And often they're in a position where they're healing. They're healing for a long time. There's a person who committed suicide. I knew this person quite closely, and I wasn't in this person's life at the time, but I learned a few days after it happened, and we had not been in touch, I think, for about 2 or 3 years, or maybe longer. But he came to me, not on the board, but came to me in dreams 2 times. And when he came, he said, I don't know why I did that. And it was like he felt really, really badly, a lot of remorse, and he was scared. but yet there were beings around him that were helping him to understand what had happened, what he did, and how that affected everybody he left behind. That's the part we forget. If we do take our lives, it affects so many people behind, and especially like somebody like Chris Cornell, and people you know looked up to him or loved him. It really affects people. You know, Robin Williams too. They don't realize that, but their pain is so great, they're not thinking of the bigger picture here. But yet they do have a chance in the afterlife, or whatever you want to call that space. I like to call it just transition. That they are welcomed with love and help to find that love within themselves again. And there's a period of healing they have to go through. But you know what? It just leaves a huge imprint on the rest of us that are left here when they take their lives. It's sad.
Yeah, actually, I will go ahead and say the individual I'm talking about, and that aspect. This is gonna give it away instantly. I feel, and a lot of other people feel, that part of the reason that he took his life was because of Chris Cornell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chris Cornell was one of his best friends, and I'm sure that gave it away for most people out there. That would be Mr. Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park.
Oh, right. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah, I really want to talk to him, and I don't know what's drawn me to that, but I will communicate with him. I can tell y'all that, and I want to know. There's so many things that I want to know. I want to know, like, there's just a lot of things that I want to know. I want to know why, what, and I'm not gonna, and I portray to be a hard ass, so to speak, sometimes. Most men do show no emotions whatsoever, and I'm not gonna lie, and people mock this and laugh about this, but I actually cried when over Chester Bennington's death, because I can relate to a lot of his music, and I know several people who struggle with depression and struggle with these things, and if you listen to some of the music that he made, it's obvious what he was going through. Some of the music that Linkin Park come out with, a lot of people say, I don't know if you've heard the song, or any of the listeners out there have heard the song called Heavy that they done. It had a female singer in it, and basically they were saying that was his message. That was his message out before he took his own life. He had wrote a song called Heavy, and he's talking about holding on, everything's so heavy, and he's asking why is everything so heavy. And I mean, it affects people in a lot of ways. I know me the same as Justin. Me and Justin have been best friends for 16 years. If something ever happened to Justin, I can't sit here. I've never been a suicidal person by any means, but I can't sit here and tell you that it wouldn't cross my mind. I would be lost. I would be lost without Justin. He's my best friend.
You'd be devastated for sure.
We've been best friends for 16 years, and anybody that knows anything about Chester Bennington or Chris Cornell, even in the public eye, they were always very close. They were good friends. There was times where Chris Cornell come out on the stage at concerts with Chester Bennington, and they done songs and whatnot together and on stage, and done a lot of performances. So I can say that there's actually a video on YouTube that's very interesting. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty amazing. It just shows how much in tune the fans really are with some of these musicians and stuff that we listen to. They actually did a cover of Crawling, and it was all fans just standing in the middle of the street, and they had a memorial set up for Chester out there. They had candles burning, his picture. It's just amazing to know that there is a lot of people in this cruel world that we live in that still have good hearts and still care about people that way.
That's absolutely well said. Yeah. It's a legacy that they leave behind, and it's not always a positive legacy. Like you said, you're very affected by it. But when you're in that moment, and feeling so deep and dark and unable to get out of it, you don't think about those things. So it just, we should just probably put it out there. If anybody's feeling this way, that's watching the show, there is somewhere to go. There's always somebody to reach out to, and things can get better. That I can tell you every day it changes. And that's what we got to remember, that it's some moments are not great, but tomorrow is a new day and things do change.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what you got to remember. Anybody out there that's listening, I know people that struggle with depression, that struggle with the thoughts of suicide every day. Someone really close to me, she, and Justin knows exactly who I'm talking about. She, I mean, when I say close, I mean she's one of my best female friends. And she is related to me. Anybody that knows me knows what I'm talking about. So, but anyways, yeah, just like never give up. Just hold on. I know it's hard, but there is a higher power out there. There is light. Even in your darkest day, you will get back to the light. You will reach the light. You will see brighter days. So, you can't
very true.
You can't let one negative thing keep you down and hold your thoughts, or you're going through a rough time in your life. And you got to remember, and I know a lot of people don't like rap music and whatnot. I listen to everything. I listen to rap, rock, country. I listen to everything, heavy metal. And the rapper Nelly said it really well in one of his songs. He said, "How bad do you think you got it? Somebody else has it worse than you." And I kind of live by that motto, even in my worst days, even when I'm feeling down or whatnot, and what's keeping me down. You got to remember that there's people out there that's dealt with worse, and you got to dig down deep inside yourself and find the strength to overcome it. You got to know that there's a brighter day, and like Karen had mentioned, if you need help, there's a lot of people out here that's willing to help, that's willing to listen, that's willing to open up to you and let you open up to them and share their condolences and try to help you through these tough times. It's never worth ending your life, because you don't deal with the pain no more, but everybody else does.
Yeah, it makes it worse on everybody that's left. That's so true. So true.
Everybody on earth, all your friends and family, when you take your life, they're affected by it. They deal with what you left. And so basically it's like, I'm tired of dealing with this burden, so I'm going to pass it on to everybody I love instead. That's basically what you got to think when you're having those thoughts. And there's people out here that'll talk to you. There's people out here that'll help you understand and get better. Well, I say get better like it's a disease. I mean, it's not so much a disease. It's just you gotta just fight and never give up.
One of my favorite mottos when it comes to the subject of suicide is that it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Very well said.
Yeah, that's very true. And if you don't know about Chester Bennington, which a lot of people do,
on the TV and wrote all over the furniture with a marker.
Chester Bennington had I think he had 6 kids, if I'm not mistaken.
I knew he had some daughters.
But
he had quite a. Oh, he had sons. You're right. He did. He had like a bunch of kids, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he had like 6 kids. So, my thoughts and prayers go out to them. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what they're having to deal with. Right. And it's just sad. And I know we did go off topic a little bit there, but I just thought it was pretty interesting to know whether somebody wanted to communicate, or people that want to communicate. I know there's a lot of us out there, and it's funny you mentioned Charles Manson, because not too long ago, I'm sure you're familiar with David Koresh.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
not too long ago, I was scrolling and there was, I can't remember, I think it may have been haunted places in Texas, because I know that's where David,
Yeah, I was in
Koresh.
Waco, Texas, where he did his cult thing. Very
Yeah,
familiar.
yeah, and they've since tore the house down, but David Koresh, the property's still there. I would love to just go down there and check it out. I can only imagine, even with the building no longer there, I'm sure their spirits are still there. I'm sure their energy is still there, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind.
Oh yeah, I think that would be some heavy energy there with what happened with all the people that were killed. Yeah, it's just, it's like going to the battlefields of Gettysburg. I mean, there's such incredible energy there. That people see all kinds of things and experience, orbs and see the soldiers. I mean, that the energy, the residue sticks around when there's such tragedy.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm not gonna call the government out on that whole incident, but what I do know is they gunned down many people, even though some of them may have been innocent, some of them may have been children.
There were children, yes.
Yeah, there were children that were gunned down by them agents that went in there. I don't agree with that by any means. I think that was, and excuse my language, but that was fucked up in all aspects of it. I don't agree with that at all. So that's another reason I would just love to go down there and be able to investigate, even if it's the land, and just share their story with the world. That would be awesome to me.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be something very interesting. I wonder if, I don't know if anybody's done that. Have you? I'm not aware of that. Has anybody?
I don't think so. I
Oh,
don't.
interesting.
I don't think that anybody has. I don't. Not that I know of. Have you heard of anybody going down there and doing David Koresh's property in Texas?
I don't think so.
I haven't. No, I don't think they have. I think I might look into that. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, you should. That's interesting. Very interesting. Well, it's Waco, Texas is where it was.
Yeah. We had I don't know how familiar you are with Arkansas, but we had a cult leader out of Arkansas too.
Who was that? I'm not familiar who that was.
He also had a compound in California. Tony Alamo.
I don't know. I don't know him.
Yeah, I only know him because this girl I used to date was actually a part of it, and he beat the hell out of women, children.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he bashed their.
Well, that's typical with the leaders, these cult leaders. They tend to do scare tactics, fear tactics, and they might use abuse too. You're absolutely right. That's what they do.
Yeah, and he has a compound here that I'm going to look into getting into. He's no longer here. He died in prison.
Okay.
He died in
Oh,
prison.
okay.
What?
How do people get into that? Being in a cult, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to work with this therapist. He did dream groups, and his name is John Goldhammer, and he wrote a really great book. I think I did a write-up for his book too on the back of the cover of it. But it was a great book about cults. He actually got into a cult, and he talks about the whole psychology behind it. A lot of times, people that end up in cults are people that didn't have. They're missing something, it was family, it was the element of connectivity, or they're drug into it, like if they're children, and you learn that that's the only way life is. So if you're young and you're brought into it, it's that they might promise you hope and freedom and light and all these things that everybody's searching for, and they might get hooked into it that way. But there's always tactics. What makes it a cult is that you have to separate yourself from everybody else. When you're told by one group you can't associate with these people anymore. Scientology is one of the world's biggest cults out there, guys, and it seems to get away with all kinds of stuff. They use all kinds of tactics and all kinds of programs that you have to follow, and it's a certain kind of jargon they use, and it really starts messing with your brain that you believe that that's where you can only be. You wouldn't exist with the outsiders anymore. So it's them us against them, us against the world, and that's what those cult leaders are good at doing. And then people start falling into that and believing the propaganda they're told, the speak they're told, and they just get sucked into it.
Nobody gonna
Yeah,
be
it's scary.
funny. I'd be like,
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
I'd have bird eat him.
right.
I'll tell you something about Tony Alamo. He had everybody convinced that he was a prophet.
Okay.
He had everyone convinced that he was a prophet from God, and his last prediction. See, they put him in prison once, and he got out. He all predicted to everybody. Oh, he predicted to all of his followers. Oh, I'm going to get the hell out. Basically, not. Of course, he didn't say hell because he's supposed to be godly, quote unquote. But the second time he went back to prison, he said, "I'll be out before 5 years." He didn't make it out before 5 years. He died in prison. Yeah, he died in prison, and basically he done a lot of things. He had multiple wives, even though he wasn't Mormon. He had basically married himself to multiple women in the cult, and a lot of them. One thing about Tony Alamo is he took in a lot of homeless people.
Yeah, see, there you go. There's this goodness they do to bring people in, and then they get you.
Yeah, basically they work for the church for free in exchange to get fed and have shelter, and then before you know it, they're getting tormented, terrorized, and whenever me and my ex first got together, she had just left the cult. And,
oh, wow.
And she had 6 kids with a man that was, he had married, their dad was like 30-something years old, and I think she was like 14 or something, or 12, and basically...
Oh, my God, statutory rape.
Yeah, and basically, Tony Alamo told her, "You're going to get married to him whether you like it or not," and they believe in having a lot of kids in the cults. So, basically, she had 6 kids, and a lot of them, most of her kids didn't have birth certificates, social security cards. They were born, what is that called? What is that called, Sherika? Huh?
Illegitimate?
No, not, well, it's a little illegitimate, but it's a type of, baby nurse or baby doctor that's not registered.
A midwife?
Yeah, a midwife.
Okay.
Yeah, she had a lot of her kids that were born by midwife in the cult, and Tony Alamo believed, let's not give them socials, let's not give them birth certificates, then they they'll be off the radar to the government.
It's another way of trapping them in.
Yeah, and another way of trapping them in. If they ever want to leave, they can't. They're screwed.
See, that's it right there. And then they grow up in that, and they're told that you're evil or bad if you leave, and people out there are there to hurt you. It's all kinds of brainwashing techniques they use. Now, do you guys remember this guy? This is way back in the 70s. This is my first introduction into the whole cult thing. Was Jim Jones in Guyana, and he's the one that had the People's Temple, and he made everybody drink that Kool-Aid. Remember? And it was a mass suicide. That was a horrible experience. I guess he started in California, and then he moved to Guyana, just to another country. But then when they were clamping down on him, he had everybody drink that Kool-Aid, and they all died. It was horrible. Mass murder suicide.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was terrible, dude. I remember that. I've read stories about that.
Yep.
I used to have a pretty interesting book. I'm sure Justin remembers it. It's called 101 People You Won't Meet in Heaven.
Yeah. It's a great title.
Oh yeah, and Jim Jones was in there.
Of course.
Of course, Adolf Hitler was in there. Joseph Mengele was in there, Saddam Hussein and Osama
I'm sure
bin
Charles
Laden
Manson.
Yeah, Charles Manson was in there. Oh my God, there was this serial killer chick that poisoned her husbands. What is her name? Oh my God, it's right there on the tip of my tongue. She basically fed them cyanide in their food when
Okay.
she cooked them dinner. She would marry these wealthy men and then kill them off. And
Oh,
oh,
wow.
and
Amazing.
of course our infamous character that Stephen King got the idea for the It Clown from, John Wayne Gacy, was in there too.
Of course. Yeah, so these are people I would not be talking to on my Ouija board. I have no desire to even give them any attention or energy.
No,
Not at all.
And it's funny because Chuck had mentioned earlier, I seen a little bit earlier, he had mentioned Timothy McVeigh.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, right.
Timothy McVeigh was another one, but I believe there's more to that story than what the media put out there. More to the story than the government let on. There's a lot of speculation, of course. It's just a conspiracy theory that I'm quoting here.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I am.
Yeah, basically that there was documents in that building that the government didn't want nobody to find, nobody to catch on to. And so basically they sent him in to do the dirty work. He was just the face of it. He wasn't actually it wasn't his idea. It wasn't. And it's funny though, because when they asked Timothy McVeigh, the only remorse he showed about doing it, it's funny when they asked him, they said, would you still have done it? Is there any final words? Is there anything that would have changed your mind about doing it? And his exact words were, and I quote, he said, "If I would have known there was a daycare in the basement, I would have picked a different building."
Oh, so sad. So sad.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, that's just a conspiracy theory, so to speak. But I don't. As bad as I hate to say this, I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm one of those people. But a lot of these conspiracy theories, so-called conspiracy theories out here, make a lot of sense, and they open your eyes to a lot of things that you wouldn't ever think about otherwise. So I kind of listen to them. Now, whether I believe it 100% or not, I can't sit there and say that I do or I don't. But I just think it's very interesting to hear it from other perspectives, and it opens your eyes to a lot more ways in that sense too.
Well, this kind of brings us full circle to what I was talking about with the board and doing this type of work with the other realms. There's so much that we've been told we can't do or shouldn't be able to do, but yet we really have these abilities. And so it's the idea that, like you're talking about the conspiracy theories, and there's more that meets the eye. Maybe we don't have the whole truth. Well, I don't think we have the whole truth about who we really are as human beings and our abilities that we have within us, and our abilities to be able to traverse and navigate all these unseen dimensions that we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same way. Honestly, sometimes I think we're just like reliving a life that we've already lived. Maybe it seems like that. It's weird, and it might sound crazy that I say that, but it's weird. It feels like, and then you get those deja vu moments and stuff too.
Oh yeah,
and it's crazy. You're like, I've been here before, and like. And there again, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, and you're not the only one that brought that up. I can't remember. We had another guest on that was talking. We've had other guests that talked about your higher self. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe our deja vu moments that we have come from our higher self.
Chuck said it's the Illuminati.
It is, dude. I'm not gonna. I don't know how you feel about it, Karen. I know a lot of people.
Oh, I feel like our higher self is talking to us, and that's a lot of the synchronistic moments we have. We're guided by our higher self all the time. I'm in constant communication with my higher self. I learned to do that. My guides have helped me do this work, and when I'm listening and connected, and I call it plugging into your higher self. It's like plugging a socket or an outlet, like a plug into an outlet, a socket. And when you do that, it's like you have that direct connection, and things seem to be that much more magical, because now you're noticing all the synchronistic things that are going on. You're noticing the deja vus. All these things are connected, because I think it is our higher self guiding us and talking to us and leading us to people and events and places and things start flowing into our life that allow this to happen. And yes, I would concur with what you're saying and your theory on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Chuck, he was pulling a funny moment, but in chat, he had brought up about our conversation earlier. He had brought up the Illuminati.
Oh, did he? Okay. What did he say about the Illuminati?
He said that all of this conspiracy theory and shit. Basically, the reason they call it conspiracy theory, I think, is what he was trying to say, is because it ties into the Illuminati, a lot of it. And I know a lot of people are all like, "Oh, you're full of shit. The Illuminati ain't real." I'm here to say, like I said, I don't know if I believe or not believe, but when it comes to the Illuminati, I definitely believe that there's a great possibility that it's like an occult, basically, in my eyes. You may agree or disagree, which is fine, but the Illuminati is like, I'm gonna say I'm a pretty strong believer in the Illuminati, and the reason I say that is I pay attention to a lot of things. I know what you can't always believe what you read online or whatnot, but there's a lot of things out there that point to more along the lines that it exists, and that it's real. And you notice things. They point out like things, and you've heard famous people talk about it on several occasions, and then they point out little things that you might have not have noticed before that are imminent in all their music videos and these movies and even cartoons. I've even seen the Illuminati, or so-called Illuminati symbols in cartoons and such, and it's crazy. It's just crazy to me. And like, you see people that, like, they're famous, they're on top of the world, and then the next thing you know, they're dead, or the media is portraying them to be a bad person. The media is bashing them, ending their career. They're going downhill. They got on drugs real bad, and their whole career fell apart. They're just destroying their whole reputation, and that kind of opens your eyes to think, what the hell is really going on here?
Yeah, you definitely can see a lot of this nefarious behavior or agenda that seems to be popping up all over the place. And it really makes us, in a way, awaken again and open our eyes. And we have to start looking at things more clearly. Before, a lot of this stuff could be swept under the carpet, and then you're just told you're a conspiracy theorist, or you're strange or weird, or believing in some weird, New World Order kind of crap. But if we look at what's going on even in our own country right now, the divisiveness, and we have to really look at that and say, who's creating this? Is it really created because we think it's created, or is there some other kind of darker, nefarious movement beneath it all that's trying to make us all be divided? So I definitely, through the work that I've done using this tool, but also with myself, I've really begun, for many years now, looking at the world, not what I'm told, but what I'm actually experiencing myself, and seeing it from a whole nother perspective. And so I definitely appreciate you bringing up your concepts on some of this, because this really ties in greatly into learning to navigate the unseen dimensions. Because again, we're talking about things that you can't necessarily prove, and that are working and operating on a whole nother level, but yet it's there. People are experiencing things, and they can't always explain it. So this ties right in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think that the likes of Prince, Michael Jackson, they all fell victim. In my opinion, I think they fell victim to the Illuminati. In my honest opinion, they started saying shit that they shouldn't have said, that they didn't want said, and so they had him killed off. And I don't know how familiar you are with Prince's death, but before Prince just so mysteriously passed away, he had been talking about the chemtrails. I don't know if you're familiar with chemtrails.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah, he started talking a lot about
Probably too familiar with it, more than I want to be.
Yeah, he started talking about the chemtrails that they leave in the sky to make us sick and whatnot. And it just so happened shortly after that, well, guess what? Prince is no longer with us, everybody. And that's a sad, sad story right there. And honestly, what really got me into Prince was the movie Purple Rain.
Sure.
That movie was amazing, but he was a great artist in general. He
Talented artist.
Oh, yeah,
just creative. Yeah.
And just like Michael Jackson, look what
gosh.
Look what they done to him, accusing him of sleeping with little boys and all this. I'm all like, dude, at one point this man was on top of the world, one of the best-selling artists that we've ever had, and one of the most highly looked up, respected to individuals, and then they go and just destroy his name like that. That's what really bothers me about it. And then he starts, and then it just so happens a few years later, his doctor killed him, is what they say.
Yeah.
Right.
But there again, that goes into the so-called conspiracy theories, which is actually an eye-opener for everybody if you pay attention. If you're just too blind to see it, then it's a different story, which I will say a lot of people are too blind to realize it, or they just don't want to believe it because they're scared of what's out there and what's to come. And that's where people like us come in. The weirdos.
I want to consider us explorers.
yeah, explorers, but to your regular everyday society, we're a bunch of weird individuals. Crazy. It's funny though. I'm not going to be racist or nothing with this comment by no means, but it's funny when I talk to my black friends and whatnot. They're like, "Oh, y'all white people are crazy. Y'all are out there looking for ghosts and hunting. You said they're all, you won't catch us, and you won't catch us." And I had one of my buddies tell me, "Don't you know black people always die first in horror films?" And he's all, "I ain't going to no damn haunted location."
That's funny.
And I was all like, no, you just gotta. And it's funny though, because there actually is some black folks out there that are paranormal investigators, Ghost Brothers, and they're actually pretty entertaining.
That's great.
Yeah, Ghost Brothers. It's 3 brothers, and they go to all kinds of locations, kind of like Ghost Adventures and Taps and all them do. But no, it's very interesting though.
You should have them on your show.
I'm trying. I reached out to them.
Good. That was really interesting. I like the fact that they're brothers. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're pretty funny. You can actually, I don't know if you have cable or not. Some don't. Some are just like, that's too damn expensive. I ain't paying for it. No, but they're on Destination America is the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do have that. I usually don't watch those shows, but I'll have to see. This sounds funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. They're hilarious. They're very funny guys, but. Yeah, I hope to get them on the show. I have reached out to them. I'm just waiting on a response back. Hopefully I can get them on. Like I said, though, I did get a response from Amy Allen. It took me forever, but I got a response from her. And I also got a response from Elizabeth Saint as well. So.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm hoping to have both of them on the show. But Elizabeth's been real busy right now, and I'm sure Amy is too. They're famous. And they travel all over the place, so I'm sure it takes a while. And I know Elizabeth is filming right now.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, Chuck's good friends with her, and he said that he said he'll try to reach out to her for me. So hopefully we
Awesome.
can get her on the show.
We'll try.
Well, I guess we've been on for a little bit now, and we've been having fun. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up for the evening. And I definitely want to thank you for joining us, Karen. If you would, feel free to go ahead and tell everybody where to find your books and your website, find you on Facebook, any other information you want to share, feel free to.
Great. Well, we really covered the gamut tonight, didn't we? Well, thank you guys. Thank you all for having me on your show. It's been a pleasure and very interesting just talking about a lot of different things. We really, like I said, we really went around the world today with our conversation. So, yeah, you can find me anywhere on social media, always under my full name, which is, I use my middle initial. It's Karen A Dahlman, Dahlman. My website is also KarenADahlman.com. Come join me on my website. I have a newsletter that I release about every 4 to 6 weeks with the latest information that's going on. I post articles, and I also have a YouTube channel, which is also under Karen A Dahlman or Creative Visions TV. We talk a lot about the Ouija board, but we also talk about how just to navigate the unseen dimensions and different ways to do that. And I bring on guests who are experts in their own ways and rights of working with the energies, and they come and share what they know. And so that's on YouTube. And my books are all on Amazon. I have 3 books out. Go look under Karen A Dahlman. The one that I probably referred to the most, or the 2 that I referred to the most tonight, was The Spirits of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication, and The Spirit of Alchemy, Secret Teachings of the Sacred Reunion. And I also have those on my website if you want an autographed copy. You can read also about the books there. And then again, like I said, on Amazon, in Kindle and in paperback. But yeah, come join me on social media. Come join my YouTube channel. That's really been a lot of fun. I have one show called The Women of Ouija, where my friend Marla Martinson and I think we did, close to 70 videos all about the Ouija board. And now my new show, Creative Visions TV, is, again, like I mentioned, it's about the Ouija board, but also we do live sessions where you can join in and ask your questions, and the spirits will talk to you directly. And also I have my guests on there. So anyway, thank you guys again for having me. It's been lovely being on your show, and I wish all of you a wonderful rest of the evening. And thank you all for out there that shared the show with us and joined us.
Oh yeah, definitely. And real quick, I'll let Lauren go ahead and throw her spill out there, because I know she likes to throw her spill out there. Go ahead.
Hey, you act like I'm messy or something.
No, you can't.
It's just the usual, everybody. Just make sure you guys, like our page, Darknite Paranormal Society. Also, make sure you guys like our Darknite Radio page on our Facebook. And our YouTube channel, of course. And also like and follow the Beyond the Light Network. So, that's it.
Yeah, definitely.
And all Karen stuff, too. Make sure you guys
Yeah, y'all definitely go check out Karen. And Lauren actually has a subscription to Kindle, so I'm definitely gonna go check out your books as well, Karen. I'll let Justin go ahead and do the usual rundown. Just a shout out for all of our guests in chat.
Yeah, I don't think we had that many people tonight, but we had just a few. I was in chat. Karen was in chat. Of course, Jen B. Chuck was in there. April was in there. I think that's. I know Luna was in there for a little bit. Let's see who else we had in there.
Of course, Karen was in the chat. We can't forget Karen, our guest.
I think that was
it. Looks like that was the wrap up of our chat. We had a few in
Steve. There was a guy named Steve.
We had a few in YouTube as well.
Yeah, YouTube.
But I think most of our ones that were in YouTube were also in the Darknite chat. And again, a big thank you, Karen, for joining us. We had a lot of fun. Maybe here soon we can bring you back on the show with us again. Lauren's making a lot of noise.
Sorry. I'm sorry, the bag was not cooperating.
Yeah, so,
It was dying.
and hopefully we can bring you back on soon. We've got a lot of great guests to come, but it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Everyone, next weekend, Friday night, we have Jen B bringing her to our Darknite Radio on Beyond the Light for the first time. We had her on Blog Talk before we transferred over, and then next Friday night, we're going to turn around and we're going to be featured on Jen B's podcast. And then right after that, we got Eric Knapp from New Hampshire coming on to our podcast. So on Saturday, we're basically going to be doing next Saturday 2 podcasts back to back. We're going to be on Jen's show, and then we're going to turn around and have Eric Knapp on our show. So it should be pretty exciting. If you're free, Karen, get a chance, definitely check it out. It should be pretty interesting.
Awesome, thanks.
Oh, yes, definitely. And everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you. Definitely go check out Karen. Check out Darknite Paranormal Society if you're not aware or haven't already. And once again, this is Darknite Radio saying good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Supernatural rules.